On the Atlantic's edge, 1,000 kilometers from the nearest continent, lies an island geologists call an anomaly. Iceland, a land that should never have appeared here in these frigid waters. The island literally grew up out of the ocean. Volcano after volcano, eruption after eruption. Today, Iceland is the youngest landmass in Europe, and it's still growing. Each year, the mid-Atlantic ridge pushes the island apart by 2.5 centimeters. 30 active volcanoes, over 200 craters, geysers hurling boiling water 30 meters into the air, glaciers blanketing 1/10 of the territory. Iceland is a planet in miniature, where all the forces of Earth converge in one place. But what made people settle on this hostile island? In the late 8th century AD, Irish monks seeking solitude landed on its barren shores. They called this place a land where one could speak with God. In the year 870, longships arrived from the east, Vikings. Norwegian outcasts and adventurers fleeing King Harald Fairhair saw freedom in Iceland. They burned monasteries, tore down monk cells, and began building a new world. The first permanent settler was Ingolfur Arnarsson. According to the sagas, he cast the wooden pillars of his high seat into the sea and vowed to build his home wherever they washed ashore. The waves carried them to smoking springs on the southwest coast. He called the place Reykjavik, Smoky Bay. Today it's the nation's capital, but back then it was just a farm at the edge of the known world. In the 60 years after Ingolfur, 20,000 people came to the island. Norwegians, Swedes, Celts. But freedom bred chaos. Without central authority, clans fought over land, honor, livestock. Blood feuds could last for generations. Iceland risked drowning in its own blood, and so the chieftains made a decision that changed everything. In the year 930, on the lava fields of Vingvellir, in the rift between two continental plates, representatives of all clans gathered. They created the Alþingi, an assembly where disputes were settled not by sword, but by word. It was the first parliament in European history. The law speaker stood upon Lögberg, the law rock, and recited the laws from memory so all could hear them. There was no king, no army, only word, memory, and the consent of free people. Iceland became a republic without a state, a commonwealth of farmers who gathered once a year to judge, trade, arrange marriages. The Alþingi met for 2 weeks every summer. The rest of the time, each man was a law unto himself. But life on the island was brutal. Winters lasted 8 months. Ice winds tore off roofs. Eruptions buried fields in ash. In the year 976, the volcano Elja opened in a series of eruptions that lasted 8 years. Ash darkened the sun over all of Europe. Chronicles of that era describe blood-red skies and crop failures from Ireland to Byzantium. Icelanders survived on moss and bark, but they did not leave. In the 10th century, Icelanders began writing down the sagas, stories of heroes, betrayals, blood feuds, and honor. These texts became the foundation of Icelandic literature and the memory of a nation. Sagas were written on parchment, made from calfskin. Each book was priceless. One of the most famous is Njál's Saga, the story of two men's friendship destroyed by their wives' scheming, ending with Njál's house burned to the ground and his entire family killed. It was tragedy on the level of Shakespeare, written 300 years before him. But the sagas weren't just literature. They were legal documents, records of land ownership, genealogies, proof of rights. To lose a saga meant losing your history. The conversion came not by the sword, but by vote. At the Althing in the year 1000, pagans and Christians stood on the brink of civil war. Then the law speaker Thorgeir withdrew to his booth for a day and a night, lying beneath a fir in silence. Iceland will accept Christianity, he said, but the old gods will not be persecuted. People may worship Odin and Thor in secret, eat horse meat, leave infants exposed if need demands it. It was a compromise that saved the country from splitting apart. The new faith brought learning. Monasteries became centers of writing. At Skalholt and Hallar, Episcopal schools were founded where boys learned Latin, theology, and law. Iceland became one of the most literate lands in medieval Europe. But literacy didn't mean wealth. The island remained poor. The land gave little. Barley barely ripened. Wheat wouldn't grow at all. Life depended on sheep and fish. Icelanders bred a special type of sheep that could survive on moss and seaweed. Cod became currency. dried fish, stockfish, was exported to Norway, England, even the Mediterranean. With it, they bought grain, iron, timber. Iceland was a land without trees. The Vikings had cut down nearly all the forests for building and fuel. By the 13th century, Iceland entered the darkest period of its history. The peace of the Althing collapsed. Clans merged into 6 powerful families who waged civil war for control of the island. The Sturlung Age, an era of chaos. Chieftains hired armies, burned rivals' farms, executed entire families. The Althing became a formality. Real power belonged to whoever could gather the most swords. They swore allegiance to the Norwegian crown. King Håkon IV promised peace, order, protection of law. In exchange for the independence their ancestors had won in blood. But the ships from Bergen brought not judges, but tax collectors. Half a century later, Norway itself fell under Danish rule. The Icelanders weren't consulted. They were simply handed over with the rest of the territories, like a herd of sheep. And then came the plague. The Black Death cut down 1/3 of the population in 2 years. Villages emptied. Fields went wild. On an island where every pair of hands mattered, this was a death sentence. In the 16th century, the Danish king decided Iceland must become Protestant, by order from Copenhagen. Catholic monasteries were plundered. Bishop John Arason, who refused to submit, was seized along with his 2 sons and beheaded in the town square. Denmark's trade monopoly strangled the island. Danish merchants bought Icelandic fish and wool for pennies, then sold grain and iron at inflated prices. Icelanders were forbidden to trade with anyone else on pain of imprisonment. In the 1780s, a series of eruptions began at Mount Loki that lasted 8 months. Ash covered the sky, froze the summer, killed the grass. 50% of the livestock died. Famine set in. What Icelanders call the Maduhardindin, the mist hardships. A Danish official proposed evacuating all remaining Icelanders to Denmark and leaving the island empty. A resettlement plan was seriously discussed. After all, the colony no longer turned a profit. Iceland hung by a thread from total extinction as a people. But the Icelanders refused to leave. Even on starving, ash-covered land, even under foreign rule, this was their land. They rebuilt their herds, resowed their fields, clung to every scrap of coastline. Slowly, generation by generation, the island came back to life. In the 19th century, as all of Europe surged with national movements, Icelanders remembered who they were. Young students in Copenhagen began printing newspapers in Icelandic, translating the sagas, writing poems about freedom. In 1874, Denmark returned to Iceland the right to write its own constitution. Not independence, but a first step. The Althing, which for centuries had been a facade, was given a voice again. Icelanders began governing their own affairs, though formally the island remained Danish property. 30 years later came full autonomy. Iceland gained its own government, its flag, control over trade. The Danish king remained the formal head of state, but real power returned to the island. 600 years of humiliation were drawing to a close. On the 17th of June, 1944, while Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany and unable to object, Icelanders held a referendum. 97% voted for independence. In Reykjavik, people poured into the streets with flags, weeping, embracing one another. But freedom came to a devastated country. Iceland in 1944. 130,000 people. Virtually no industry, no army, no resources. The economy survived on fishing. The Americans built a military base at Keflavik during the war and stayed. Iceland, strategically positioned between America and Europe, became part of NATO, even though it had no army of its own. In the 50s and 70s, Iceland fought a series of cod wars with Britain, clashes over fishing rights. Icelandic patrol boats, armed with net cutters, attacked British trawlers. Britain sent warships. Iceland threatened to leave NATO. Britain backed down. Control of the waters brought prosperity. Iceland's fishing industry modernized, quotas protected stocks, exports soared. By the 80s, the island they'd nearly abandoned a century before had become one of Europe's wealthiest nations per capita. But this was only the beginning. In the 90s, Iceland discovered tourism. Foreigners began arriving to see what Icelanders had always taken for granted: geysers, glaciers, volcanoes, the northern lights. Hotels, guides, restaurants. Within 10 years, tourism became the second largest sector of the economy. But in 2008, Iceland's banks, which had borrowed abroad for years, collapsed in a single week. The financial crisis wiped out savings, destroyed the krona, froze the economy. Instead of bailing out the banks with taxpayer money, as the rest of Europe did, Iceland let them fail, arrested the bankers, held a referendum in which the people refused to pay private debts. The world predicted disaster. Today, Iceland is one of the most prosperous, safest, and most equal countries on the planet. Nearly all energy comes from geothermal and hydroelectric sources. Life expectancy, 83 years. Crime rate nearly zero. A population of 370,000, smaller than most European cities. But these 370,000 have survived volcanoes, plague, famine, 6 centuries of colonial rule, and financial apocalypse. And each time, they found a way to endure. The Icelandic language has barely changed since the 13th century. A modern schoolchild can read medieval sagas in the original. There's no word for please, because politeness is simply understood. New technologies are given Icelandic names, coined by linguists, not borrowed from English. And beneath it all, a land still being born. Eyjafjallajökull erupted in 2010, shutting down European aviation for a week. Buries villages. But Icelanders don't flee. They've lived with this for 1,000 years. Because fire doesn't only destroy, it gives warmth. 90% of homes in the country are heated by geothermal energy, water heated by the magma beneath the earth, for free. In Reykjavik, sidewalks are heated year-round. Snow melts before it can touch the pavement. People dive into outdoor pools even in winter. Water from beneath the earth keeps it at 40 degrees. But it's not just volcanoes that make Iceland unique. Here, 2 worlds collide, fire and ice. 11% of the territory is covered by glaciers. Vatnajökull, the largest in Europe, spans 8,000 square kilometers. The ice reaches depths of 1 kilometer in places. And beneath that ice, volcanoes. Grímsvötn, Bárðarbunga, Órafjallajökull. They sleep beneath the frozen surface, and when they wake, catastrophe begins. Lava meets ice. Water turns to steam in an instant. The pressure tears the glacier apart from within. In 1996, Gjálpa woke beneath Vatnajökull. The eruption lasted 13 days. Meltwater gathered beneath the ice, 3 cubic kilometers of it. When the glacier gave way, the water surged down. This is called Jökullaup, a glacial outburst flood, a phenomenon found almost nowhere else on Earth. Fire and ice wage war, and the land between them buckles, cracks, is born anew. Iceland, a battleground of 2 elements. And between the volcanoes and glaciers, waterfalls. Hundreds of them. Gullfoss, the Golden Falls, plunges in 2 tiers, 32 meters down, 140 cubic meters of water per second. The roar carries for kilometers. Dettifoss in the north, the most powerful in Europe. 100 cubic meters per second hurl themselves off a cliff 44 meters high. The ground trembles beneath your feet 100 meters away. This isn't just water, this is force, unleashed by melting glaciers. But there are waterfalls that seem to vanish. Svartafoss, the Black Falls, drops between basalt columns, frozen lava pipes arranged by nature like organ pipes. Iceland, an island of contrasts, where each landscape defies the last. In the south, the black sand beaches of Vik, strewn with basalt fragments. Atlantic waves hammer the cliffs of Rennisdrangar, 3 fangs jutting from the sea. In the east, fjords, deep, narrow, carved like scars. Glaciers cut them over millions of years, then the ocean filled the voids. Seyðisfjörður, Reyðarfjörður, names that carry the scrape of ice on stone. And in the island's center, the highlands, where no roads lead. Only dirt tracks, passable 2 months a year. A desert of lava and ash, where nothing lives. Askja, a volcanic caldera cradling the lake Öskjuvatn. Right here, in the highlands, NASA trained astronauts before the moon missions. From 1965 to 1968, Apollo crews learned to walk on Iceland's lava fields, because the moon looks exactly like this. But there is a place where ice conquers fire. Jökulsárlón Glacial Lagoon, a lake at the foot of Vatnajökull. Icebergs calve from the glacier and drift toward the ocean, shimmering blue and white. Some weigh hundreds of tons. They glide slowly, silently, like ghosts. Nearby, Diamond Beach, Icebergs are swept out to sea. Waves shatter them and cast the fragments onto black sand. Chunks of ice the size of a human lie on the shore, glowing in the sunlight like cut gemstones. Iceland is a young land, but its history runs deep. The first settlers arrived from Norway in the year 874. Ingolfur Arnarsson, his name lives on in the sagas. The waves carried his pillars into a bay he named Reykjavik. Smoky Bay. He saw steam rising from hot springs and mistook it for smoke. That's how the capital was born. The Vikings brought more than swords and ships. They brought law. In 930, on the plain of Vingvellir, the first parliament convened, the Alþingi. Chieftains from across the island gathered once a year to judge, to make laws, to settle disputes. The Alþingi still meets today, 1,094 years later. The oldest functioning parliament in the world, and Vingvellir became more than a historic site. It's a rift between two continents. You can descend into the Silfra fissure and touch two continents at once. The water here is glacial melt, filtered through lava for 50 years. Visibility, 100 meters, one of the purest places on Earth. The Vikings left more than a parliament. They left the sagas. Icelandic sagas, written down in the 13th century. They're not just literature. They're genealogy, history, court records woven into epic verse. The saga of Egil, the saga of Njal, the saga of Eric the Red. Icelanders trace their ancestry back to the 9th century. There's a database, Íslendingabók, the Book of Icelanders, tracking the connections of all 380,000 people in the country. There's even an app that warns you if you're dating a distant cousin. But the sagas don't just tell of heroes, they tell of catastrophes, the worst. The Laki eruption of 1783 to 1784. A fissure 27 kilometers long tore open in the south. A cloud of poisonous gas rose into the sky. Fluorine and sulfuric acid fell with the rains. The grass turned black. Livestock began to die. First the sheep, then the cattle, then the horses. By winter, 80% of the sheep and 50% of the cattle had perished. But all of Europe felt the consequences. The sulfur cloud drifted over the continent. The summer of 1783 was the coldest in a century. Crops failed in France and Germany. Historians believe the famine triggered by the eruption helped push France toward revolution. The Laki eruption released 15 cubic kilometers of lava, the largest basalt flow in historical times. The streams hardened into fields of black stone that still cover the south of the island. It's a scar the Earth has carried for 240 years. Today, 90% of Iceland's homes are heated by geothermal water. Hot springs, drilled 2 kilometers deep, bring water at temperatures above 100 degrees. It flows through pipes beneath Reykjavik, warming the capital even through the coldest winters. And even deeper, in the heart of the volcanoes, Iceland draws electricity. Geothermal plants produce a quarter of the country's energy. Rivers provide the rest. Iceland has completely abandoned fossil fuels. It's the only country in the world running entirely on renewable sources. Icelanders took it in stride. They're used to it. Eruptions happen on average once every 4 years. The island lives in a state of constant readiness. Every schoolchild knows what to do if a volcano wakes up near their home. Beneath this ice, volcanoes sleep. One of them, Grimsvötn, erupts directly under the glacier. Lava melts the ice from within. Water accumulates in giant subglacial lakes. When the pressure grows too great, the lake bursts through. In 2014, Iceland held a funeral for a glacier. Öxl melted completely, the country's first glacier to lose its status. At the site where it once lay, they installed a memorial plaque. It carries a message to the future. But while the glaciers still live, they create wonders. Beneath the ice, caves are born. Meltwater carves corridors of blue ice. Light passing through transforms the caves into sapphire cathedrals. These caves exist only in winter. In summer, they melt and collapse. Each year, the glacier births new caves, and each year they vanish. This is Iceland's most fleeting wonder, beauty that lives for just a few months. And on the glacier's surface lies ash. Eruptions regularly blanket the ice in black. Dark ice absorbs more solar heat and melts faster. The volcanoes hasten the glacier's demise. Fire kills ice. And the most famous is Gullfoss, the Golden Falls. The river plunges in 2 cascades into a canyon 70 meters deep. On a sunny day, the spray creates a rainbow that hangs above the falls like a crown. Icelanders call it the 8th wonder of the world. The project was canceled. Gullfoss was saved. Sigritur became Iceland's first conservationist. She's called the mother of the country's environmental movement. Today, her statue stands at the waterfall she saved. But the story of Gullfoss is only one chapter in the book of Iceland's waters. In the north of the country lies a place they call the Diamond of Icelandic Nature, Lake Mývatn. Its name means Lake of Midges, but it's not the midges that draw travelers here. Mývatn lies in the very heart of the volcanic zone. Around the lake, lava fields, craters, hot springs. Here the earth steams and hisses. Temperatures beneath the surface reach 200 degrees Celsius. Water boils in natural cauldrons. Iceland is the only country in the world to have completely abandoned fossil fuels. 100% of its electricity comes from renewable sources. 85% geothermal energy and hydroelectric plants. The rest, wind. The consequences were felt across Europe. The toxic haze reached France and Britain. Crops failed. Bread prices soared. Historians believe the famine after Laki was one of the causes of the French Revolution of 1789. 100,000 flights canceled. 10 million passengers stranded in airports. Airline losses exceeded $1.7 billion. One Icelandic volcano stopped a continent. Icelanders have lived with volcanoes for thousands of years. They've learned to read the signs of the earth. When a volcano is about to wake, the smell of water in the springs changes. Birds fly away. The ground begins to tremble. But predicting the exact date of an eruption is still impossible. In the south of Iceland, there's a place where volcano and glacier meet face to face. The volcano Katla sleeps beneath the Myrtlsjökull Glacier. It erupts every 40 to 80 years. The last eruption was in 1918. It's long overdue. When Katla wakes, the ice will melt in hours. Billions of tons of water will cascade down. Icelanders call this Jökullaup, a glacial flood. The wave will sweep away everything in its path. Bridges, roads, farms. Scientists monitor Katla around the clock. The ice here isn't white. It's blue, transparent, ancient. Some icebergs are 1,000 years old. They glow from within, like frozen sapphires. The lagoon only appeared in 1934. Before that, there was solid glacier here. Near the lagoon lies Diamond Beach. Icebergs drift out to sea, waves break them apart and cast the fragments onto black sand. Ice rests on volcanic ash like precious gems. Sunlight streams through them. Every day, the scene transforms. But Iceland's glaciers are melting. Over the last 100 years, they've lost 11% of their mass. Scientists predict that by the year 2200, the island's glaciers will vanish completely. Iceland will lose its very name. Iceland became the first country to hold a funeral for a glacier, but not the last. The climate is changing. Glaciers are disappearing. Yet while they're still here, they offer the world spectacles you won't find anywhere else. Inside Iceland's glaciers are ice caves. In winter, when the ice is solid, you can step inside. The walls are blue, translucent. Light filters through the ice and bathes everything in sapphire. It's like being inside a precious gem. But these caves are fleeting. Every summer they melt. Every winter they form anew. In new places, with new shapes. You can never enter the same ice cave twice. Each one is unique. Each one will vanish in a few months. Ice over volcano. It sounds like a contradiction, but in Iceland, contradictions are the norm. Fire and ice, desert and waterfall, winter darkness and summer light. Here, everything exists in a balance of extremes. And one of those extremes is the aurora. The northern lights appear here from September through April. Green, violet, crimson waves dance across the black sky. Ancient Icelanders believed these were pathways where the souls of the dead returned from the heavens. Today, scientists know the truth. It's the solar wind. Charged particles slam into Earth's magnetic field at an altitude of 100 kilometers. The collision produces light, but the magic remains. To stand beneath the aurora is to watch the sky come alive. But Iceland isn't only about the night. In summer, the sun barely sets. The midnight sun hangs above the horizon, gilding the fjords in gold. Daylight lasts 21 hours. Icelanders step out at midnight to stroll in broad daylight. This land of extremes forged a people like no other. Icelanders are descendants of Vikings and Celts who mingled 1,000 years ago. They read sagas written in the 13th century in their modern tongue. Icelandic has barely changed. It's a living link to the past. And they believe in the hidden people. Surveys show more than half of Icelanders accept the existence of Huldufolk, elves dwelling in the rocks. Road builders steer around stones said to house these beings. The modern world and myth live side by side. Iceland is one of the most literate nations on Earth. 99% of the population can read and write. 1 in 10 publishes a book in their lifetime. On an island of 370,000, more books per capita are published than anywhere else. Hot water from deep underground flows straight into Reykjavik's taps. The city is heated by steam from volcanic depths. In winter, sidewalks are warmed from below. The snow melts on its own. Icelanders live on the planet's thermal blanket. But the lagoon is not a natural wonder. It's an accident. It formed in 1976 as a waste reservoir for a geothermal power plant. Water pumped up from the depths collected in a lava field. Years later, people discovered the water healed skin. Today, 1 million tourists a year come to Iceland. For a country with fewer than 500,000 people, it's an onslaught. Tourism has become the main pillar of the economy, yet the island remains wild. Most of its territory is uninhabited wilderness. Icelanders protect nature fiercely. Step off the trail in a reserve, you're fined. Moss on lava takes 100 years to grow. One footstep kills a century of life. Volcanic soil is fragile. The rules are strict because the land demands respect. But the greatest threat isn't tourists, it's climate. Iceland's glaciers are melting. Vatnajökull has lost 10% of its mass in the last 30 years. Ökjökull, a glacier in the west, vanished completely in 2014. Iceland is a land of paradoxes. It is fragile and indestructible at once. Glaciers melt, but volcanoes build new land. The population is tiny, yet the culture is vast. The island is isolated, yet connected to the entire world. There is no army here. Iceland is the only NATO country without armed forces. Police don't carry firearms. Murder is almost unheard of. Some years, 0. This is one of the safest places on Earth. And this is a country of equality. Iceland has led the world in gender equality 14 years running. Women make up nearly half of parliament. In 2009, Iceland elected the world's first openly lesbian prime minister. Icelanders vote more than anyone else in Europe. Turnout exceeds 80%. Citizens trust their government and take part in it. Democracy here isn't abstract. It's an everyday practice. Iceland survived collapse. In 2008, the country's financial system crashed in 3 days. The 3 largest banks failed. Debt exceeded GDP tenfold. The nation stood on the brink. Today, Iceland is thriving. GDP per capita ranks among the highest in the world. Unemployment sits below 3%. Tourism, fishing, tech. The economy is diversified. The crisis became a lesson, not a sentence. Iceland proved that a small nation can be mighty. It lives at the edge of the world, but not the edge of history. It's built on fire and ice, but sustained by its people. Island of fire and ice. A land where continents and elements collide. A place where nature reigns and humanity learns to live in harmony with it. Iceland isn't just a country, it's a lesson.